Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's video lecture, and we are covering the urinary system. So let's go ahead and begin. Organs of the urinary system include kidneys that are major excretory organs. Let me pick up my pen. Right, so kidneys. Just a second. Urinary bladder is a temporary storage or reservoir for urine. Ureters that transport urine from the kidneys to the bladder, and urethra transport urine out of the body. So if you look at this diagram over here, you can see we have two kidneys, a right kidney, a left kidney. This is where urine is produced. What your kidneys do, they actually filter and clean your blood, and they remove nitrogenous waste product and excess water and ions from your blood. So you do need a blood supply. So you can see those arteries, renal arteries that bring blood to the kidney. Then you filter this blood, and whatever you filter out, with some modifications, and for example, you filter out stuff, and some of substances you reabsorb back into blood, but whatever you don't need in your body will be conveyed from kidneys to the urinary bladder, right? And those tubes that transport urine from the kidney to urinary bladder called ureters. Then you will store urine inside urinary bladder, and then you transport it outside of your body through urethra. So here are kidney functions again. So removal of toxins, metabolic waste, excess ions from the blood, regulation of blood volume, chemical composition, and pH, gluconeogenesis during prolonged fasting. And gluconeogenesis means synthesis of glucose from substances that are not carbohydrates. Also endocrine functions. Your kidneys secrete renin, that's an endocrine hormone that regulate blood pressure and kidney function. And kidney also produce erythropoietin that regulates production of red blood cells. Also activation of vitamin D. Let's look at the anatomy of kidneys. Now, kidneys are retroperitoneal organs. They're located in a superior lumbar region. So if you look over here, you can see this is our, thoracic region, and T10, T11, those are thoracic vertebrae. And then we have L1, L2, and that's a location of kidney. Now, what retroperitoneal means, I have another diagram here. I will show you what retroperitoneal means in a minute. Now, right kidney is lower than a left kidney, and that's because on the right side, you have a pretty big organ, liver, and liver occupied lots of space, and I guess that's why right kidney a little bit lower than left. Convex lateral surface, and here, so this is a convex, and concave medial surface. Also in this area of the kidney, you have structure called renal hilum. And renal hilum, this is where you have blood vessels entering and exiting kidneys, the ureter exiting, right? And a renal hilum leads inside the kidney to renal sinus. And we will see another diagram. Ureters, renal blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves enter and exit at the hilum. So over here, we can look at internal anatomy of the kidney, and this is where we can see what retroperitoneal means. Now, this is anterior part of the body, that's a posterior part. So that's your abdominal cavity. And your abdominal cavity is covered by membrane that is called serous membrane. And specifically inside abdominal cavity, this membrane is called peritoneal. So it's a serous membrane, serous peritoneal membrane. And organs that are inside this peritoneal cavity, so they will be covered by a visceral peritoneal, and the cavity is covered by parietal peritoneum. So those are peritoneal organs. But if you look at the kidney, they are not inside this peritoneal cavity. That's why they are retroperitoneal. So what you can see over here, this by the way, L2, right, lumbar vertebrae 2. So it's the upper lumbar region. Let's see the protecting layers that cover kidneys and provide cushioning, some prevention of infection, and anchoring of the kidneys. So if we start from more superficial to deep, so this shown here in brown color, right? This is the renal fascia. This is dense fibrous connective tissue. And fascia anchors outer layer, it's an anchoring outer layer of kidney. So it's anchored to the posterior wall, right? Anchored to the peritoneal cavity. So that's renal fascia. Deep to renal fascia, we have perirenal fat capsule. So everything that's shown here in this blue color represents this perirenal fat capsule. And fat is good for cushioning, and fat is also good for protection from pathogens, from bacterial infection, for example. And adherents to kidney surface, the deepest layer is a fibrous capsule, prevents spread of infection to kidney. Right, so again, kidneys are retroperitoneal, so that means they are not inside this peritoneal cavity. They are inside abdominal cavity, but not inside peritoneal. And if you imagine your, imagine you have abdominal cavity and inside you have like a bag made of a membrane, so that's a peritoneal cavity. Kidneys are retroperitoneal. Then they are covered by renal fascia, that is fibrous connective tissue, perirenal fat capsule, and fibrous capsule. Now, internal anatomy. So if you look at a coronal section, you can see the capsule, right? That's connective capsule. Then this part of the kidney is called cortex. You should already know that cortex is a name that used a lot in anatomy, and it means outer surface, right? So that's a cortex. And inside we have medulla. So all this part over here is the renal medulla. Now, renal medulla is made of renal pyramids. So here's a renal pyramid, here's another renal pyramid, and renal columns. So columns are between two pyramids. So medulla is inner region. Pyramids contain urine transport tubules. So here, pyramids are made of tubules. Then we have renal papillae, and this is the structure over here. and those are bundles of collecting ducts. And renal hilum, we already said the renal hilum is this area over here where we have blood vessel, nerve, lymphatic vessels, and ureter in this area, right? So this is renal hilum. Because kidney made of lots of tubules. So you have tubules over here, right? Collecting ducts. And then you have this tube, right? So this tube over here is called minor calyx. Here's the name, right? So this is the minor calyx here. This is the minor calyx. This is the minor calyx. And then my minor calyxes, they come together, right? So the urine flow towards the minor calyx here, minor calyx here, and then we have a bigger tube, and it's called major calyx. And then this area over here is pelvis. So all major calyxes bring urine to pelvis, right? And from this papillae, from pyramid, the urine flow into minor calyx and major calyx, then renal pelvis, and then ureter and urinary bladder. Also, we know that one of kidney function is to filter blood, and it's a major really function. That's why you have lot of blood vessels within kidney. Right, so that's what show over here. So all these red lines right there, those are all blood vessels, arteries, small arteries, capillaries, right? So we have, it's a very vascular structure. And those blood vessels, they have their names. We will talk about these names in a minute. Now, again, this part right here is the cortex. And if you magnify a cortex, so here's a cortex on the top. So that's a cortex. And this is medulla. So that's, again, this area over here is medulla. Within the cortex, you will see structure that's shown over here. See the structure right there? This structure is called nephron. And we have million of nephrons. I think about 1 million nephrons per each kidney. So this is nephron, this is nephron over here. Nephron is functional unit of the kidney. It cleans blood and it balances constituents of the. So it removes excess ions, extra water, right? Waste products. That's the job of nephron. Now glomerulus. So let's look. So again, this is our cortex, right? This is the medulla. And over here on the top, we have cortex. Here inferior, we have medulla. Now nephrons, they made of this round structure here shown right there and right there. This is actually called renal corpuscle. And if we magnify this renal corpuscle, it's shown over here. Inside the renal corpuscle, you have a bunch of capillaries. So you have this blood capillaries. And these blood capillaries are called glomerulus. So it's a tuft of afferent arteriole. So that's, well, I would say it's really, this is arteriole, and then we have these capillaries. And this glomerulus has its own capsule called glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule. So either glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule is the older name. And together, Bowman's capsule and glomerulus make this renal corpuscle. So this red structure here is renal corpuscle. Inside we have glomerulus, and you know, this cup-shaped structure is glomerular capsule. And plus nephron. So nephron is made of renal corpuscle and a bunch of these tubules. And those tubules has their own names that we will look and learn these names soon. But here we have blood vessels. Actually, let's go back. Let me see if, yeah, we can go to this picture first so you can see those blood vessels instead of just talking about them. So let's look at this picture first. Oh, I don't know why all of a sudden I have here. Clear all drawings. Okay, I'm trying to, I don't know. Oh, hold on a second. Let me figure out what is going on here. Just a second. Because yeah, I want my vanishing pen. Otherwise, I'm making too much mess over here. Now, those are major blood vessels. This is aorta, and this one is inferior vena cava. So you can see from aorta, we have branching arteries, and those are renal arteries. So here's the right renal artery and the left renal artery. So this is the artery. So they're branching from aorta, and we deliver oxygenated blood to the kidney. So here's the renal artery. It shows, you know, under this nerve, right? So we have a renal artery, and it enter kidney at the hilum, and then it start branching. So this first branches here and here are called segmental arteries. Then segmental arteries move between two pyramids where we have this column, right? So this area here and this, and it's called interlobar artery, because this is actually, I forgot to tell you what a lobe is. So this is pyramid, right? And this is column. So if you take half of a column over here and half of a column here, and this area that includes two halves of two columns and a pyramid called lobe. So that's a one lobe. And because blood vessels right here in between two lobes, it's called interlobar, so between lobes. Then if you see it make like this structure will look like arch. So it's arcuate artery. And from the arcuate artery, we have arteries that radiates within cortex. So it's called radiate arteries, cortical radiate arteries. Right, so here's our cortical radiate artery. And then we have arteriole. So it's a smaller blood vessel that branching from radiate artery called afferent or afferent arteriole. And then this afferent arteriole breaks into glomerulus. So those are capillaries. So the blood flows through this network of capillaries, and then it enters efferent arteriole. Right? So that's an afferent arteriole, glomerulus, efferent arteriole, and then it's branching into arteries that, well, actually, sorry, capillaries that go around those tubules. That's why we call it peritubular capillaries. Now, this part is called loop of nephron, and capillaries that cover this loop are called actually vasa recta. So here's the name right there, vasa recta. So okay, let's see what we have. So we have aorta, right? Then renal artery, then segmental arteries, then interlobar arteries, arcuate artery, cortical radiate artery, and over here, this is our this is the supply to the renal corpuscle, right? We have afferent arteriole glomerulus that are capillaries, then efferent arteriole, then we break them into peritubular capillaries and vasa recta, and then blood vessels became bigger, right? So over here, blood vessels became smaller, and when blood flow back, blood vessels became bigger. And they have similar name, like here, cortical radiate artery. So now we have cortical radiate veins, arcuate artery, arcuate vein, interlobar artery, interlobar vein. The only things that we don't have segmental, we only have segmental arteries, not the veins. So interlobar veins bring blood to a renal vein, and renal veins to inferior vena cava. Right, so and if you look at a picture over here, you can see that. So here's our renal vein that brings blood to. So here's the renal vein, brings blood to this inferior vena cava and then up to back to the heart. But the blood vessels pretty much have the same pattern here, right? So we have radiate arteries, radiate vein. We have arcuate arteries, arcuate veins. We have interlobar. So here, interlobar veins. This is interlobar artery. The only thing that we don't have this segmental vein. So this interlobar bring blood straight to renal vein. Right, so on a diagram over here, we can see the better of a renal cortex. So this part is a renal cortex, and this is a renal medulla. Right, so renal cortex contains renal corpuscle. Then, so if you look, you see this is the renal corpuscle over here, and then this tube close to the corpuscle is called proximal convoluted tubules. Then it became, it makes this loop, either a shorter loop or over here, for example. So here's a proximal convoluted tubule, makes this long loop deep into medulla, but this is called loop of Henle or nephron loop. And then the nephron loop became convoluted again, but this convoluted tubule is further away from corpuscle, so it's called distal convoluted tubules. Yeah, so this is one nephron. And you can see distal convoluted tubule bring urine inside this tube that is called collecting duct. So this is collecting duct. And several nephrons, like you see this one and this one, several nephrons bring filtrate into this collecting duct. So here's another nephron, brings it here, here, and here. That's why collecting duct is not part of nephron. Now, everything inside this tubule we call filtrate, right? And when filtrate enters collecting duct, we call it urine. Right, so that's what it says. Renal cortex contains renal corpuscles, proximal convoluted tubules, distal convoluted tubules. Then loop of Henle, it can be, if it's short, we call it cortical nephron. If it's long, we call it juxtamedullary nephrons. And they have slightly different function. On this diagram, we can better discuss anatomy of renal corpuscle. So renal corpuscle is this entire structure over here, right? So entire structure here is renal corpuscle, but it's made of what is inside. That's a glomerulus and glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule. So glomerulus is a high pressure capillary bed. So that's a network of capillary with pretty high pressure. So Bowman's capsule captures and direct filtrate to the proximal convoluted tubule. So this is our afferent, start with A, afferent arteriole. So the blood enters the capsule, right? But blood stays inside this capillaries. So blood stays inside capillaries, but those capillaries are have pores. So it's very leaky structure. So a lot of fluid and whatever is dissolved in this fluid, and even small, maybe small proteins, like for example, glucose, ions, so leaks out from the capillary inside this capsule, and we call it filtrate. And then filtrates start moving towards the proximal convoluted tubule. And so imagine you have blood, right, coming toward these capillaries, and you have toxins in this blood, you have excess salt, you know, you have too much water maybe. So everything, you have amino acid, you have lots of stuff within your blood. So many of these molecules are filtered out, and including toxins. That's what you need, right, or waste product. So everything in this filtrate start moving through those tubules, and the part that you need, it will be reabsorbed back into this peritubular capillaries. Remember, we have capillaries. And whatever stays inside these tubules and it's not reabsorbed back into bloodstream, then will be your urine. Now, what is interesting, if you look at those capillaries at the glomerulus, so here's the capillary, they cover by a special cells. So you see those cells over here? Those cells are called podocyte. Poda means feet and cyte means cell. So the cell, here would be a nucleus of a cell that has this kind of processes, right? Those processes called pedicles. So those podocytes have pedicles, and you can see two cells here, 1, 2, even 3, and each has these pedicles, and there is a gap in between pedicles, and those gaps are called filtration slits. And lots of substances can pass through these slits. So over here, those are podocytes. You see this yellow part over here? Just show you that we have podocytes. Podocytes here as well. They just do not show you podocytes on this side of glomerulus. All right, so smaller substances can move through filtration slits, and large substances cannot. And this is how we prevent red blood cells, for example, from leaving the circulation. So red blood cells stays inside capillaries, large molecules stay inside capillaries, but water and small molecules can be filtered out through these filtration slits. Now we can look at capillaries themselves. So those are capillaries. So this is your glomerulus. And capillaries are made of cells. So by the way, you know, for example, this is one cell over here. Here's a nucleus of a cell. And the wall of capillaries is one cell thickness. So here one cell, and maybe here's another cell, and here's another cell, and that's a lumen of the capillaries. So capillaries are made of special epithelium called endothelium. So those are endothelium, and cells of endothelium, they connected through a tight junction, but you can see it has those pores. Those pores are called fenestration. And that's good because this is where all this fluid leaking out. If you want to filter, think about those capillaries like your filter paper, right? So if you want to filtrate something, you have a paper, filtration paper, and you know, some stuff can pass through the paper. Here we don't have a paper, we have endothelium, then we have podocytes, Or, epithelium always on a basement membrane, always, because basement membrane is a pretty much characteristic of epithelial tissue. So we have epithelial tissue, it's resting on the basement membrane, that is extracellular matrix. And then we would have a podocyte. So here, for example, we would have a podocyte, right? So here we will have this podocyte cell. Let me draw a podocyte cell for you without vanishing, right? Because otherwise, okay, so here, for example, would be a cell, is a nucleus. Here we have maybe two processes, and then this process goes and makes this, right? So that's gonna be our pedicles, and here will be another cell. Let's have some feet, and then we go that, right? And here we have some space in between, that is filtration sleeves. And the substances can move through fenestration, through these filtration sleeves, and where they will go, they will move inside the glomerular capsule. So fenestration prevents filtration of blood cells and large proteins, right? So they are not big enough, those pores are not big enough, so they prevent filtration of blood cells and large proteins and allow most other things through. Mesangial cells, I'll show you on the next slide, they regulate rate of filtration. Now, what are those mesangial cells? Let's move over here and look at, and then we will get back. So here's our afferent arteriole, so the blood coming toward this glomerulus. And glomerulus, those are capillaries, right? So you can see that's our, those are our capillaries, red blood cells inside. You can see podocytes. But what's shown here in this blue color, right? This is our mesangial cells. So we have glomerula, because this is, remember, this structure over here is glomerulus. So we have glomerular mesangial cells, and we have extraglomerular mesangial cells. So right there. And those are kind of those cells that support those capillaries. They also regulate filtration. Scientists believe that they similar to smooth muscle cells, right? So those are our mesangial cells. And I just wanted to show you, because it says here, mesangial cells regulate rate of filtration. Now, what is filtration membrane? Let's look at picture over here. So again, this is afferent arteriole. And by the way, on all the diagrams, afferent arteriole always will be a bigger blood vessel, because it's how it is. The diameter of afferent arteriole is larger than efferent. So here you have flow of blood. Now, all these dots here represent some solutes like proteins, maybe ions, maybe some waste product, right? Metabolic waste. So inside your blood. And so the blood enters, and now look, this green one, show here, the green one may be too big, so we don't filter them out. But some of this blue one, they're supposed to show us the smaller particles. They actually filtered out inside this yellow structure that is our Bowman's capsule. And whatever fluid we have here, so we have lots of water, but we have other molecules inside this water. That's our filtrate. So we filter stuff out. Now think about these molecules need to move through the walls, because that's a tube. So they need to move through the wall of these capillaries. So what are those structures? They need to go across, right? to move from blood inside the capsule. And if you look here, this is what we have. So here's our blood. Here's the capillaries of blood. And you know that capillaries are made by epithelial cells called endothelium. So here's the, cells of endothelium. Then we have obviously basement membrane. And then we have the podocytes. So over here, food processes of podocytes. And right, so over here and over here. And this is the opening. This is our slit diaphragm. So the filtrate need to go through the endothelium, basement membrane, and food processes of podocytes. And all the structure is called filtration membrane. So filtration membrane is a porous membrane between the blood and the capsule space. It consists of fenestrated endothelium of the glomerular capillaries. So here's fenestrated endothelium. Fenestrated, remember, we have pores. Visceral membrane of glomerular capsule. So those podocytes, we call them visceral membrane of the glomerular capsule. Podocytes with food processes and filtration slits. And in between is gel-like basement membrane that is fused basal lamina over two other layers. So those cells have a basement membrane. These cells have basement membrane, and it's fused membrane between endothelial cells and podocytes make this basement membrane. So that's filtration membrane, right? So three parts of the filtration membrane is capillary endothelium, basement membrane, and food processes of podocytes, and another name for it is visceral membrane of glomerular capsule. Right, another important structure that part of glomerulus is called JGA, or Juxtaglomerular Apparatus. What is that? So let's again find our orientation. So here we have our afferent arteriole. So here we deliver blood toward the corpuscle, right? So our goal is to bring blood right here inside this capsule, filter everything out, right? Filter lots of stuff out and start moving this filtrate within those tubules. Now, whatever we want to return back, we're going to return back to blood, but whatever stays here will be urine. And then when, we bring blood here, we filter out part of the plasma with dissolved substances, but red blood cells, white blood cells, large proteins, we don't want to filter them out, and we cannot do it because the pores and slits are too small. So this big blood cells, they need to continue moving, right? And continue moving into efferent arteriole. Now, in the area where afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole come together, so right there, and the area where we have this structure, and this is actually the descending loop. So if you look over here, it says this is our proximal convoluted tubule that is descending, ascending part of the loop of Henle, and this is distal convoluted tubule. So it's ascending part of the loop, and partially this distant convoluted tubule. In this area, we have our juxtaglomerular apparatus, right? What it says, yeah. So this is a part of the ascending limb of nephron loop, right? So move it again. So, okay, so here's our corpuscle. This is proximal convoluted tubule. This loop goes down, so it's a descending loop, descending limb of the loop. This goes up, ascending limb, right? So it go up, and then it became a distal convoluted tubule. So right in this area, we have this apparatus, and it's important for regulation of filtration rate, and plus it's also important to regulate a blood pressure. Now, what it's made of? It's made of this cell over here, and those cells are called macula densa. Macula means spot, and densa means dense. So macula densa over here, and these cells right there, and those cells are called granular cells. So we have macula densa, that is cuboidal cells of the loop of Henle, and granular cells that are modified smooth muscles. They both are receptors. So macula densa and granular cells are receptors. And also granular cells release hormone called renin. But this area is our juxtaglomerular apparatus. So let's look at the next slide. It's explained in more details. So macula densa are cuboidal cells. So we already saw it. So those cuboidal cells right here regulates renin release. They are chemoreceptors. So those are chemoreceptors. That means they sense the composition of your blood. They actually sense sodium chloride content of the filtrate. I mean, not your blood, but yes, filtrate, because inside this tube, we will have filtrate. So here we will see how much, they will sense how much salt are in your filtrate. And if it's too much salt, right, then maybe you need to, too much salt, maybe you need to reabsorb something, right? Or you don't have enough salt. So anyway, this is how you will, you will control what is removed from your body and what you're gonna keep within your body. Those granular cells, they are modified smooth muscles, and they are also receptors, but they are mechanoreceptors. And mechanoreceptors sense the blood pressure. So they're gonna sense your blood pressure. And granular, that means they probably have some granules, right? And that's true. Those granules are actually vesicles that contains renin. And renin regulate your blood pressure, right? So you will sense your blood pressure, right? You will sense the amount of salt in your filtrate, and this will allow you to regulate a rate of your urine formation. And by releasing renin, it will renin actually will lower your blood pressure. Right, so that's important structure that is JGA, or juxtaglomerular apparatus. Right, so let me see. I don't want to make this video too long, so I will cover 2 more slides, and then I will record another video. So we cover kind of briefly glomerulus. So where's this glomerulus over here? Glomerulus is part of this structure. So this is renal corpuscle, right? Glomerulus is inside. This is actually your capillaries, so network of capillaries. So glomerulus has its capsule that called Bowman's capsule or glomerular capsule. Together, capsule and glomerulus make renal corpuscle. Now, inside this glomerulus and inside this efferent and efferent arteriole, you have blood, right? You have blood that you need to filter. So when your blood, when the substances are filtered out from the blood inside this capsule, now we call it filtrate. So filtrates start moving through those tubules. Then it goes to a loop of Henle. then it goes through the tubule again, and then into collecting duct. So when filtrate moves through all these tubules, lots of processes happens. Some of the stuff, let me draw. So you will have another capillaries here. Some of the stuff will be reabsorbed back into your capillaries because you want to keep it inside your body. Some will be maybe secreted back over here. But whatever stays inside these tubules, whatever moves to your collecting duct, and you can still regulate the concentration of urine in your collecting duct a little bit, right? So, but whatever stays in the collecting duct then will become your urine. So that will be your urine. So we need now to remember and learn what are all these tubules named. Right, the one that close to the capsule is called proximal convoluted tubule. And if you look over here, the wall of this tubule are made of simple cuboidal epithelial cells with microvilli. So you have lots of microvilli. And remember, microvilli to increase surface area. So the function is absorption and secretion. So it's going to absorb and secrete sodium, chloride, glucose, right? Then we go to loop of Henle, and it has descending limb and ascending limb. Descending, you go down, ascending, you go up. So filtrate moves down, and then it moves up. And you see this descending, it has a lot of this thin segment. So this descending loop is made of simple squamous epithelium. So this is a thin segment, so simple squamous epithelium, and ascending, this thick part is made of a simple cuboidal epithelium. Then you have a distal convoluted tubule. So here's a proximal, here's a distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule also made of simple cuboidal epithelium, but less microvilli. And this one is not for absorption and secretion. That are pretty much passive processes. Those are mostly for active transport. And then your filtrate moves inside collecting duct. And collecting duct is made of two types of cells, principal cells and intercalated cells. And principal cells for water and salt balance, and intercalated cells for acid-base balance, right? And as I already said, whatever you collect from collecting duct, finally gonna be your urine and will be removed from your body, right? And let's see how many slides I have. Should I make another video or should I just continue? I know nobody wanna watch very long video, so maybe I will stop over here and I record another video where I very quickly will go over structure of nephron. Because nephron is a functional and structural unit of kidney. So, and it says right, where is this? No. Renal cortex, yeah, right there. Oh no, not even here. Okay, somewhere here I will find it when it says nephron. That is your functional unit of kidney. So I will, in next video, I briefly review everything, maybe like 5 minutes, promise. And then I finish up anatomy of kidney, right? Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.